Hello everyone. This video will talk about how ethical consideration of natural resources can help abate climate change. Natural resources are integral to collective existence of all species on the planet. Land, water, and air are the most essential and basic natural resources known to us. Also, the most exploited, followed by the extensive use of animal resources. It is no surprise they are defined by most international organizations as natural materials that are economically useful. Excess of everything is bad, and that holds true for our disposition towards unrestricted and unrelenting use of natural resources to our benefit. More so, with the present appalling condition of our planet threatened with the unprecedented global climate change. Unfortunately, its presence is not acknowledged by many, and even so, by those who do, it is beyond the capacity to predict the future. In everyday life, the less exposed communities of First Nations, Aboriginals, and indigenous populations from around the globe believe in natural resources as their deity, friends, or relatives, indicating they are living beings. Even the more exposed scientists and philosophers have expressed how natural resources such as soil, wind, and water are alive in their writings. But what do they mean by alive? By definition, alive would mean someone that is alert and active, is living, and spend their life in a specific way. So by definition, soil is alive, as a spoonful of dirt has more number of organisms than the entire human population. When extended, the empirical definition of alive could also entail someone that reacts to situations and has a social environment, irrespective of size and space. These thoughts are expressed in intellectual, fictional, and scientific writings, almost all of which have been controversial and much debated upon, especially the classical work on land ethics by Aldo Leopold, or one of the most popular and on a wider scale, the concept of Gaia, the living earth, explained by the chemist James Lovelock in a series of books, and more recently, The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wolleben, a German forester that reflects his close and personal interaction and understanding of the forest in his books. While the Gaia hypothesis, formulated by Lovelock in 1970s, focuses on the Earth systems and how living organisms interact with the inorganic surroundings, Peter Wolleben builds upon fairly recent scientific discoveries by life sciences scientists to describe how trees are like human families that live and grow together with their own vulnerabilities and capability to respond to tense situations. A Sand County Almanac by Leopold, which is a combination of natural history and philosophy, advocates the idea of responsible relationship existing between people and the land they inhabit. In this work, he suggests just as we have come to recognize that our human communities are intrinsically valuable, we should come to recognize that the biotic community with its soils, water, plants, and animals is intrinsically valuable as well. When contemplating these works, all of them point to a single thought: to acknowledge and respect our surroundings irrespective of their appearance and economic worth. Rivers, trees, soil, and landscape vary across the world, similar to the way we humans and our language differ across geographies. There is diversity in type, age, shape, color, and scale, just the way humans do. They have interactions with each other on a bigger community scale, like in the human society. Not only do they help each other as river providing water and food, trees providing fruits and shelter, soil giving nourishment to biota and more, they also provide ecosystem services for human needs. And as our understanding of the ecological systems get better, the role of interdependencies get deeper. However, the humans with their myopic view consider themselves to be above the rest without having firm understanding of evolution. There is no written proof from the history before Christianity and few other monotheistic religions that advocate human happiness and well-being as the supreme allows us to use the natural resources to our sole benefit. Having different perspectives is always helpful. As highlighted by Milstein, a re-examination might turn up new ideas that are worthy of consideration, but these perspectives should promote coexistence and harmony. It would be safe to say that the approach of classical philosophers was limited by the knowledge and understanding of natural world by the then scientific and intellectual community, as today we know through various scientific studies how many non-human animal species are capable of synthesizing information and act accordingly. Famous example is Washoe, the female chimpanzee who went beyond and learned to communicate using the American Sign Language. This, however, is not limited to the animal kingdom. There is enough scientific data to prove that the flora of this planet communicates and reacts as well. Their action and response time, however, may not match that of humans. It is an inherent proclivity of human race to embrace others and objects that provides them happiness and feeling of tranquility. Surrounded by them keeps their happiness quotient high, which is required to lead a better life. Also mentioned by the utilitarian John Stuart Mill in his works, the fundamental goal is the greatest happiness of the greatest number, and that can be achieved by providing everybody with an equal claim to all the means of happiness. One such simple and accessible yet profound source of happiness is found in the presence of natural surroundings. For these reasons, it seems like the right thing to do to respect the natural world around us. However, with the current climate change crisis, the source of happiness and calm is threatened. Some may argue that it is a temporary state of happiness and it requires a lot of work to preserve these resources, but if it provides a temporary state of stress, if it provides happiness, then it is essential for existence of both human and non-human species. Despite all the knowledge, there is little or no will to act. Reasons are plenty and majority revolve around social and cultural setting. A major aspect is that no one wants to take responsibility as they believe it is too much work to be mindful and act otherwise. Also, the fact that humans rely mostly on the five senses to acknowledge ambient settings restricts their deeper understanding of them. While speaking of philosophy, there's more questions to be answered. Of the millions of non-human species in the world, why all should be in service to man? Should humans continue to use natural resources for their benefit? Is the current disposition of human race of a parasite to the planet? What obligations should humans keep for future generations? Or going one step further, why should humans continue to propagate its species and life itself? Just the fact that most of the debates and writings till date revolve around humans and non-human interactions is a major contradiction to treating the living ecosystem as a whole. There is an expression in Hindi, "Tali kabhi ek haath se nahi bajti," with a literal translation that no one can ever clap with a single hand. However, the intent is a deeper meaning that an impact cannot be created with a single perspective. Hence, in order to work out a solution, we'll have to see the humans and non-humans as individuals at par that have equal rights and ethical consideration. In support comes one of my favorite quotes from the Jeremy Bentham's work, where he said, "The day may come when the rest of the animal creation may acquire those rights which never could have been withholden from them but by the hand of tyranny. The French have already discovered that the blackness of the skin is no reason why a human being should be abandoned without redress to the caprice of a tormentor. It may come one day to be recognized that the number of the legs, the velocity of the skin, or the termination of the os sacrum are reasons equally insufficient for abandoning a sensitive being to the same fate. What else is it that should trace the insuperable line? Is it the faculty of reason, or perhaps the faculty of discourse? But a full-grown horse or dog is beyond comparison a more rational as well as a more conversable animal than an infant of a day or a week or even a month old. But suppose the case were otherwise, what would it avail? The question is not can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer? Brown further corroborated this by mentioning, "A utilitarian should consider the well-being of at least some non-human animals, since some of these surely think, feel pleasure, and feel pain." Climate change is real and happening right now. There is no time to be ignorant. We have delayed solving this problem so long that we are probably the final generation who can solve it. But how will this happen? Like other basic knowledge, kids should be taught in elementary to understand and respect the role of nature, having mindful discussions on international platforms, by empowering the youth and women, especially in the developing regions, promote healthy dialogue between the modern and indigenous populations, new technological and socio-economic innovations, and finally, better policy and regulatory frameworks for sustainable future. Across the globe, works to include constitutional provisions for environmental protection gained momentum after the UN Conference on the Human Environment held in Stockholm in 1972. Countries that included environmental rights and duties are mentioned here. Of all these, Ecuador is one country that provisioned rights to nature in the Constitution in 2008, where natural communities and ecosystems possess the inalienable right to exist, flourish, and evolve within the country. Recently, New Zealand, without a constitutional environmental right, and India followed their steps and granted same legal rights to their rivers as human beings, which entails that polluting or damaging the rivers will be legally equivalent to harming a person. All looks good with these initiatives, but what strategies will follow? Who will represent these natural resources? Is it the First Nations, Aboriginals, and indigenous populations, or the scientific community? Should it be the governments, institutions, and enterprises, or selective individuals? Should it be made available to all for the common good? What is a better solution? What are the implications? And will this be enough? Will we be able to solve the crisis of climate change with these approaches? Maybe we will, or maybe not. Nothing is certain. But considering ethics as a parallel approach will progress cultural and intellectual evolution. It will provide future generations with better understanding of the ecosystem and its intricate nature, in hope that being aware of the social representation of nature, they will be more aware of the role of natural resources and use them with conscience. This video can be considered an introduction to why and how we should perceive natural resources as individuals to mitigate climate change. Some work has been done in the past and much needs to be done in future. Acknowledging the rights of natural resources and respecting their space is the way forward. I hope that this video is able to provide you with a different perspective on ethical consideration towards natural resources and the need to preserve them for intergenerational existence in perpetuity. As for me, I want to die and be reborn as a tree.